Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kenda Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind and forward-moving spouse. Her bomb drop is June 8th of 2019 and a date of marriage of 2014. She has an off and on who is a high-energy replayer. She says, there was bomb drop and then an emotional affair with someone who wasn't interested. But he kept trying. He moved out about 6 months later to his parents' house for about 6 months. Then he came home after a few arrests, and he seemed to hit rock bottom. He was depressed, and then I thought he was in withdrawal. He didn't ever speak. He sat in a chair all day, in and out for months. Then healing for about a year. Nice apologies. Very calm, supportive. Now he is again nasty, angry, sabotaging work. Kids' sports teams, he hates me again. He's throwing divorce out there. I know he's looking for unconditional love, which I can't give because I'm trying to set boundaries with his behavior toward me. Cleaning up his mess behind the scenes. I'm confused where he's at in the crisis. I do see inner child issues. Not feeling good enough is a big one. Extreme anxiety. He can't handle anything. Small things throw him over the edge, causing frustration and anger. Okay, let's start with a few things. First thing, what is unconditional love? Why do you think that unconditional love means that you aren't allowed to set boundaries with it? So unconditional love, that means first thing that the person didn't earn it because you are offering it without conditions. You're saying, I love you anyway. I love you no matter what. It is the agape that they talk about in the Bible or other religions as well. You don't have to do anything to earn it. That is the recipient of the love. So, thinking from Christian terms, we think of Jesus as having had agape. But did he still get angry at the temple and turn over the tables? That was a boundary, and he felt that they were crossing this boundary. So, you probably are giving more unconditional love than you know it. It's just your label. And if you can shift that label, maybe you'll have a different feeling on how you're doing on the love portion. Because unconditional love means I accept you. It doesn't mean walk over my face because I'm a doormat, though. And that's the difference. Being accepting of a person doesn't mean you enable them to abuse you or abuse anybody else, including themselves. Okay. So let me get something straight with your bomb drop. We had June of 2019, and that's 4 years now. We have an emotional affair, kept trying. He moved out after 6 months later. So around December or so, 2019 or the new year, 2020, he moved out. 6 months after that, he to his parents for another 6 months. So about after a year, he came home, is what I'm getting from this. So around June of 2020, he came home. But he was depressed, didn't speak, sat in a chair. Then there was healing for about a year. I don't know how long this, after he came home, the depression piece that you're describing lasted, but there was healing for about a year. Was that 2021? Because you could have been, what are you thinking that healing means? He was healing, he was getting better, your marriage was healing, things were better, he had apologies, he was calm and supportive. So there can be a few things that are going on. One of them is that in midlife crisis, you go through the stages, and then when you get near the end portion, in the end stage, there is a return to the former stages to make sure everything is wrapped up. And I don't know that that is 100% do that, but it is not common for us to be having felt we had even gotten through some healing and repair, and we were there, but really we were in the final stage, and suddenly things are just as bad as they were back at the original escape and avoid. And this is because they make a backtrack, sort of. And instead of thinking of it as a backtrack, because if they backtrack, then don't you have the same footsteps in front of you? No, I think of it as there is a mini neighborhood of liminality within the final reintegration phase, and a mini neighborhood or neighborhood of escape and avoid within there. So you go toward liminality, you go do some more editing. Oftentimes, I also consider that between liminality and reintegration, there's rebirth, but it's like a little bridge. And you go back and forth, editing. Oh, I tried to reintegrate into society, but it didn't quite work because I need to work on myself some more. So you go back and put more pieces of yourself, sift through the pieces of self. So there's some of that, part of that is a return to liminality. But we also returned to the escape and avoid behaviors. Part of that might simply be as we are sifting through the liminality, we see that those things that we have done, and we have to face them, because liminality is facing the mirror. But a lot of the things that are in that mirror are the things we did in escape and avoid. So as part of accepting what we've done and dealing with it and accepting who we are and who we are becoming and who we have become, we have to return to those for a moment to review it. And so that could be part of what's going on. He's now reviewing all of the things he did that did so much damage, and it's hard to face it again. And so they go through this piece where when they go through the review, they're angry. They're doing all of the same things. So I'm not saying that's what's going on. That's just what part of might be. You reference extreme anxiety. And we can have anxiety increase during midlife crisis. But does he have an anxiety condition? And the reason that highlighted for me is my husband Chuck has an anxiety disorder. He had it before we met. Yeah, it was probably a factor in his MLC, because that sort of thing can make you more sensitive and to having that MLC. But that didn't go away with his midlife crisis. And anxiety, you say, after that, right as soon as you said that, you said, can't handle anything. That's from my experience as a spouse with somebody with anxiety, that's very familiar. Here's the way I describe anxiety is everything is spilled milk. And so you cry over it all. And when you say you can't pick your battles, well, they pick all of them. They can't pick and choose. Everything is a catastrophe. What is that thing we say about everything's a nail? If you're worried, it's like everything. And yes, I'm using absolute modifiers, like everything. Everything is the worst. Every day is the worst. I haven't felt this bad. Or the noise is the worst. Or that the backyard is the worst it's been. But next week, I hear the same thing. And the same thing. He can't delineate between minor and major. And that makes it so you can't handle those things. Small things throw him over the edge. But to him, they're not small. Because that response internally, the brain, is still firing at catastrophic, as though this is a catastrophe. So we're dealing with chemical issues. So maybe this is part of his midlife crisis. But does he have an anxiety condition? Did he before? And if he didn't before, has this brought on one that's it's now a condition? And that could be something that needs to be worked on with psychotherapy, psychiatry, some medical intervention, therapeutic and medical intervention, either of those or both. Both would be fabulous. How much right of wife do you have to suggest these? And if you do suggest them, is he going to fly off at you for the suggestion? Do you have to get him into family counseling where somebody else suggested it? I don't know. But those are some things that I'm seeing. Is he could be going through the return. He could be going through extreme anxiety that is an anxiety disorder. Could be both of those things. I would see if he is willing to accept help, what can you do for the anxiety? If he's not willing to accept help, what can you do for the anxiety? In other words, are there things you can do that are helpful or that he would be willing, such as, hey, you know what, would you like to have, when you go to bed tonight, would you like to have a meditation to help you sleep, to help you calm down to get into sleep? We're starting with it not during the day, because that might be a trigger for, what do you say? Something wrong with me? My husband Chuck sometimes has been using the meditations at night. He was just told by a doctor for one of his other medical conditions, hey, you should do these hypnotherapy meditation things for stress. And she gave him a certain one for his condition, an app that's on an app. And then this one communicates with his doctor. This is like 2 days ago. And so he's been going up in the middle of the day and doing like these 10-minute sessions. And then getting very stressed when the house isn't quiet. But that might be something. Are there things that you can do otherwise? Can you say, hey, could I give you a foot rub? Can I help you to, are there things you can do touch-wise to help him calm down? Now the answer might be no. Now the next thing is, is there anything nutritionally that you can do? I like to make smoothies. And so you can add things that might help. Would you like me to make you a smoothie? These are great for your stomach if you're feeling any, because sometimes you feel anxious in your stomach. Those are just some suggestions. They might feel like you're just spinning around if you don't get the next level of help. But any kind of mindfulness, the thing is, I'm not talking to the person that has the issue. And I am talking to the person that might be given the paranoia. Oh, what do you want? Why are you confusing about? Why are you saying this about me? So you have to sometimes tread carefully. But that you said anxiety. And everyone else might say, oh, that sounds like mine too. I'm highlighting it because I don't usually see somebody who specifically uses it in that way, the term, and then they can't handle anything, throwing over the edge. Use some keywords that I just deal with, not in the midlife crisis situation. So that is something to think about. You're right. You did some healing for about a year. If it was nice, and apologies. Find some ways where you're setting your boundaries, because that is very important. But when you set your boundaries, how firm are you? But also, how soft is your voice? Is it assertive in an aggressive manner? Hey, you need to do that, and you need to do it now. That's aggressive. Or is it soft? Because if you use the aggressive manner, that's going to create resistance, probably in anybody. But there is a lot of empathy rooted under the soft voice. And sometimes we can slip in with that. Okay? So I hope this is helpful. And I will see everybody in the next question.